These days, there's a crude Texas expression which runs approximately, "This is the guy who thinks his own stuff don't stink," and that's been characteristic of Bush for a long time.
Well, that is a very bad quality in a person who needs to hear from the best minds in the business.
I've never thought that it hurt politicians to admit error, and especially if you do it in some disarming way. Was it LaGuardia who said, "When I make a mistake, it's a beaut"? I mean, that's such a good human thing to say. I really don't think it hurts your credibility. And the trouble with the new Republican line, and they're so good at getting their talking points repeated through the mass media, that's one of the disconcerting things about being in Washington, is seeing how well all this works. One of their talking points is that suddenly Iraq is going to disappear. It's off the radar screen. It's the Iraqis' responsibility. We've handed it over. We don't have anything to do with it anymore. Yeah. Nobody needs to pay attention to this. Remember when they dropped Osama bin Laden like a hot rock?
Yes, and he said he doesn't spend any time on it.
Yeah, and that somehow Osama was not the important one. Well, suddenly Iraq is about to disappear from our radar screen.
I know that.
Rapidity. And the interesting thing is how compliant the media are in this game.
Who'd you vote for in the 2000 election?
Ralph Nader.
Why did you do that?
It was a safe vote. I was in Texas. It wasn't going to make any difference. We had a deal where we were swapping out, if you'd vote for Al Gore in a swing state, we'd vote for Nader somewhere where it wouldn't make any difference. That way you might get, up to 5%, which is what it takes to qualify.
So
that was what the data people were aiming for. And I'm a great believer in, trying to keep third parties going.
Well,
but I got to tell you, the results were so sad last time.
There were no results last time, Molly. You realize I was in Palm Beach County broadcast. That's where I was.
Right.
On election 2000. I was on the phone that day with Lieberman because I had just come back from voting. I called my congressman, who's Rob Wexler, and I said to him, you better get in here. Something is so wrong. I saw people being turned away. My husband couldn't vote. They told him he didn't register. We registered the exact same minute. And I could vote and he couldn't, and I could see something was so wrong. People were outside crying. So I got on the air at 3 o'clock, and I said, get me Joe Lieberman on the phone. I just talked to Hadassah. They wouldn't let me talk to Joe, but they let me talk to Hadassah the day before. So I talked to her, and I called her, and I said, did you like the way that interview went? I said, yeah. Put your husband on the phone. Something is so wrong here in Florida. So she put him on the phone from some porta potty somewhere, and I said to him, something's wrong. So they go, and they were so... Matter of fact, it's going to be all right. Don't worry. 36 days later, it wasn't so all right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was a big mess, but I always thought part of that problem, I went to Florida after the hang-up, was that the media freaked out. I mean, we kept saying, this is unprecedented, this is world-shaking. Well, nobody's ever seen one that big get tied up. I mean, it's happened a couple of times, but not in this century.
Well, and not an electoral vote, which is why we can't have third parties,
But there's a process for dealing with it. I mean, elections get tied every year, several of them. I mean, in years of covering politics, I must have covered at least a dozen races.
I got to give it to Florida, though. The Florida election law, which I became extraordinarily intimate with, which is sad because that's the only intimacy I have ever had. It actually says this: ascertain the intent of the voter. I don't think that's complicated. So, and then, of course, the Supreme Court, in like 1,000 pages, sits there and says, okay, this one time and one time only. Mm-hmm. For George only, here's what we'll do. Equal protection, and I'll tell you why. 67 counties of Florida, and you all vote different. You people are crazy. You vote different. This one has a punch card. This one has an optical scan. This one's got a little scratch pad. Can't count them the same, therefore can't count them at all. I went, what? And then they said, and only for George, and only this one time.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Florida had well-established rules, procedures, laws about what to do if it got tangled up. And then in the middle of that whole process, it just got dropped like a hot rock.
Well, they went to federal court. We went to state court. That was the big snafu. Color us crazy. We thought states' rights. The Republicans have been preaching it for so long. We really thought the states have the right to select the electors.
There was a wonderful moment late in the thing. Now, somebody should go back and check this. The Florida legislature literally tried to stage a coup d'etat. It attracted no attention because the next day the Supreme Court ruled.
Right.
But it was just fascinating.
Well, I love the way you redistricted Florida. If you're going to take a shot at Florida, then in Texas, I love that the Democrats have to flee the state.
Well,
this is like the best political time to be funny because it's just right in itself. Oh, you know,
I make up stuff like that. I was embedded with the troops in Ardmore, Oklahoma.
Oh, that's right.
It's not a destination vacation spot.
Ardmore, yeah, it's as good as Lawson. You know, I love it up there. But what do you think of the Cheney rumor?
Not much. I think it's one of those little flatbeds where...
Is this a distraction, or...?
Yeah, run around and get all excited over absolutely nothing. Bush has a history in his life of adopting older male mentors, and it seems to me pretty clear that Cheney's his main guy in Washington, and
well, who could you get to replace Cheney? Dr. Evil? I mean, really... You need like four of them. The distractions are endless. I mean, here they are talking to us about hideous terrorist attacks to upset our election like Madrid, you know, and not doing anything about it. Or Cheney might step down and gay marriage. These are the biggest distractions from two of the bloodiest days in Iraq that I can imagine. And the media, you're right, they roll over and they just go with it.
Well, it's amazing to me how easily the media are distracted from what really matters to people. And trying to get, you know, first of all, it's hard to convince people to be interested in politics to begin with. And then when they see all this so-called political debate that has absolutely nothing to do with their lives. I mean, you know, Dick Cheney let fly with the F word. John Kerry has French-looking hair. I mean, it has nothing to do with the fact that people got no health insurance.
I agree, but what is it that it's going to take in this country for people to actually say that they are being ill-served by, you know, the media? I tried to float this yesterday, that I want a law, and the law should say that if we're going to attack or invade another country, for 30 days prior, okay, unless there's an extraordinary circumstance that requires, you know, expediency, but for 30 days prior, every network, every cable station, everything in the world has got to focus on the country we are about to attack. Its people, its culture, its economic base, how it makes its money, what it's done wrong, who the leaders are, what they want, what we don't want from them, what we will do to get out.
That's a really interesting sounding plan. Okay, I'm going to let loose the cynical cracks just because it sort of fits here, but I'm not that cynical. I can't remember whose line it was, the observation that war is God's way of teaching Americans geography. I mean, most of us couldn't have found Iraq on a map before 1990. And the degree of ignorance with which we went in there, you know, expecting these people to greet us with flowers is kind of pathetic. One of my all-time favorite statements was Paul Wolfowitz before the war testifying in front of Congress under oath, there is no history of ethnic division in Iraq.
Oh, he's so funny, Wolf. Isn't he funny?
He really is.
He's so funny.
Well, if you don't laugh, you will go insane.
You're right, and that's why I'm so grateful for you, Molly Ivins, author of yet another great book called Who Let the Dogs In? Incredible Political Animals I Have Known. You are the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Molly Ivins. I've always wanted to talk to her. Molly. Well, if you know her, you know we've lost somebody we hold dear. But what she has left behind, we will hold dearer still. Rest in peace, brave warrior woman.